Earlier today, I sat down with First Lady Laura Bush at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. She was there for a luncheon on global literacy, which has been one of her most passionate causes of her time as First Lady. I asked her, though, what advice she had for the candidates and for their spouses, something she has a lot of experience with, during this incredibly intense race.
I think you really can do it all in the White House. Certainly many of the mundane things are taken care of for you with the cook and all those things. But my advice would be to make those homes your home. Make the White House or the Vice President's house your home, and remember that that's what it is.
Yeah, I was asking her about, sort of how you keep a personal life and be part of running the country, and also whether someone who had 5 children might be able to do that job and take all that on. She said, absolutely. We're going to have more on that for you in just a moment. But with me right now is Tanya Acker. She is the president of the Young Democrats of America. She worked on the 2004 Kerry Edwards campaign. Bill Salmon is Fox News Washington deputy managing editor. And Charmaine Yoest is the president of Americans United for Life and a former Huckabee spokesperson. Tanya, when you look at the sort of the whole picture, and Laura Bush has been a very important part of the whole picture for George Bush. Her husband has had very low approval numbers, and that's something else that I asked her about as well. But she has remained, sort of a stable figure in the midst of all of this. What do you think about all that?
Absolutely, and just one quick correction, Martha. I'm not president of the Young Democrats, but I do have a great admiration for them.
Okay.
But
thanks for the clarification.
About the First Lady, one of the great things about this First Lady is that she's really the sort of post-partisan, nonpartisan figure. I mean, in some ways, when you hear about some of the things that she says about both Cindy McCain and some of the other comments that I think have been very fair and very generous and appropriately generous to Michelle Obama, she's really sort of this mother figure, where she kind of like, she doesn't want to choose sides. She doesn't want to increase division. She really is there to sort of be a calming, almost maternal figure. And I have to say, I kind of like it. She's my favorite Bush.
Charmaine, when you look at the other two ladies, they have sort of a different character. I mean, everyone's unique in their own right, but Cindy McCain and Michelle Obama, what kind of First Ladies do you think they would make?
Well, I think the real issue is, people frequently talk about them in terms of what issues and all that they would push forward. But I think the real question does have to be, what kind of relationship they have with their husband and what his policies are going to be. And we have to stay focused on that. I think Laura Bush takes a very good tack by remaining a lady and being very gracious and above the fray and all of that.
All right, let's play another soundbite and we'll get some more reaction on this.
Everyone needs to be careful about how they handle it. I think it's very easy to end up being charged with being sexist or not giving a woman the same fair treatment that you would be if it were a man. I think there's some. I think there has been some. Sure, I'm not going to name any specific one, but even your question of can you raise 5 children and be a president or be a vice president? And of course, the fact is, yes, you can. And many, many families that have lived in the White House and the VP House have had all those children living there with them.
Bill Salmon, of course, I was getting at the issue of Sarah Palin and, asking the First Lady if she thought, because she knows better than most of us what it's like to go through 8 years of this. So even as a vice president, it's something you could do with a young family. She said, absolutely. But we have seen a lot of sort of perhaps sexist attacks on Sarah Palin. And how do you think that reflects on the whole family issue of this campaign?
Well, I think it causes people to rally around Sarah Palin. At least the conservative base likes to rally around Sarah Palin every time she gets attacked, and it's almost like a chivalry kind of a reaction. I saw one McCain ad where they were saying, the Obama team, first they dismissed her as good-looking, then they dismissed her as this or that. And I think the McCain people like to put that out there, because the more she's attacked, the more the base gets riled up and excited and is probably more willing to go out and vote on Election Day.
Hey, go ahead, real quick.
Do you mind me, if you don't mind me jumping in, Martha, I have 5 kids too, so question always it interests me a whole lot too. But I don't think anybody should be confused about the fact that all of these attacks that are just really being hammered over and over again at Sarah Palin really do come back to her strong pro-life record. The issue on the table with this campaign and this election is
and
the
that
Supreme
is, I think,
Court
what has made it her so divisive and made women on both sides of supporting her or against her so outspoken. Trace has some emails. We want to get some of our viewers' thoughts in on all of this. Trace, what do they have to say?
Yeah, because we asked, how important are the candidates' families to your vote? And we've got, let's see, Andrea says, is that Andrea? Yeah, Andrea says, how a family is raised and what problems arise from them says as much on the parenting as their governing style. The family is the first group a candidate governs. A 17-year-old pregnancy shows a lack of conscious parenting. If you're in a position of great responsibility and power, it is an issue. And Mike from Florida says they have no effect on the way I would vote unless the candidate decided to give them a government or cabinet position within their administration. And finally, Peggy in Pennsylvania says the families of the candidates are of importance to me because they will also represent our country. They will be in the foreground at receptions and in foreign travel. The eyes of the world will be watching.
Yeah, isn't it interesting that it's the women who say, yes, it matters? And the female vote, obviously very important in this election. Women tend to vote in higher numbers than men. And women do, I think, look at the whole picture. So
that's right. Go ahead.
Real quick, and then we're going to go. Go ahead, Tanya.
No, well, the quick point is, I find it so interesting how folks on the far right have now, for the first time, discovered sexism. When, frankly, it's been Democrats who, for years, have been saying women should be able to work and raise families and do all the things that they find are important. I think it's important that Sarah Palin not cloak herself and cloak valid questions about her qualifications behind sexism. But, frankly, I'm glad we're having these kinds of conversations, and I'm glad, frankly, that people on the far right have finally come to terms with the fact that women do work and raise kids as well.
Yeah, well, isn't it interesting that it's a Republican who actually put the first woman, the second woman, I should say, on the vice presidential ticket, so that says something in and of itself. Bill Salmon, Charmaine Yoest, and Tanya Acker. We'll have to carry you over to another time. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Martha.
You have something else
to
say?
Good stuff. Good stuff.